Thanks very much, everybody, for joining again today, and I'm now going to hand over to Chris.
Thank you very much, Kate. We are still missing a few people, I think. I hope they will find the way to us a bit later. And yeah, yesterday we talked and hear quite a lot about innovations. It was an interesting presentation show that we had yesterday, and obviously all these nice ideas, remembering yesterday, they need investments. And therefore, I'm very happy to introduce you to Alex Bristol, our CEO. He will talk about balancing the investments with the challenging cost savings that an ANSP today has. Welcome, Alex.
It's a shame that I can't join you for both days, all the way through the days, because it seems to me that you're discussing some very, very interesting things and things that are really important to a company like Skyguide, to every ANSP actually as well. And when Chris and I were talking about setting this up, we thought, what can we talk about and how can we actually bring a CEO perspective into this rather than simply say, please carry on, you're doing a great job in training. And we thought, well, maybe actually telling you a little bit about what's gone on at the executive level for the last couple of years at some ANSPs might be worthwhile. Because, of course, the COVID pandemic hit every ANSP very, very hard. I mean, it hit the whole aviation industry hard, but it hit the ANSPs very hard indeed. And a lot of ANSPs came under pressure from shareholders, came under pressure from their owners to make drastic savings and to take significant steps in their investments. Inside Skyguide, we had the same pressure as well. Our owner came to us and said, whoa, you've got no money, you've got no income, we're not actually sure when you're next going to get that income, and so what do we do? What do we expect of you? For our part, we explained what we thought was important and what we thought was necessary. We had long discussions within the executive team. We had long discussions then with our board of directors who instruct the executive team. And the first port of call was, let's make savings. We're going to lose about 300 million probably in this year being 2020. How are you going to save 300 million? What do you do to save 300 million? Well, when you've got 70% of your costs, as most ANSPs do, being in the personnel, well, the obvious thing to do is to say, well, let's get rid of personnel, or let's go part-time, or let's do something like that. In Switzerland, we were lucky enough to be able to take advantage of the furlough scheme, so we got some money from insurance schemes in order to back up payment for people, and controllers especially, who weren't actually at work. But one of the real tricks in all of this was then to try and decide whether to continue to invest in projects and in the various other things that we had in front of us. The pressure on ANSPs and on the executive teams of ANSPs to stop investment was enormous. It was huge, both directly from the users and indirectly from the airspace users, indirectly from the European Commission as well. And the European Commission said, you've got to find some ways to ease the pain on the airspace users. And our reaction to that was to say, we hear what you're saying, but we have a problem. We can't just simply get rid of a load of people and then employ them again the day after tomorrow, which was what the airlines and all of the ground handling organizations thought they could do. And as we're now seeing, actually, even they weren't right in that respect. The other difficult one was the conversation then about, what about investing in projects? Surely you can just simply stop that. And our response to that was to say, if we stop investing in projects now, when we have a great possibility to implement things, which we normally would not be able to do in the summer, for example, then we lose the future benefits. And the future benefits simply get delayed as well. So if we do what the airline users immediately wanted us to do, we would have two problems in 3 to 5 years' time. One, not enough controllers, because we will have got rid of them and we won't have been recruiting new controllers. And two, the benefits that we expect from our investments, in Skyguide's case, that's our so-called virtual center. The virtual center is designed to virtualize all of our platforms, harmonize them, and enable us to move sectors of airspace so that the Geneva controllers can control above Zurich, and the Zurich controllers can control above Geneva. And that brings with it some significant benefits to the customers in the longer run. A simple saving today creates a lack of benefits in the future. And also, we end up, as many ANSPs do, with obsolescence problems. So at the executive level, we had huge and long conversations about this to say, where do we actually draw that line? Where do we stop investing? Because you can't just keep investing money you don't have, obviously. So with the board of directors, we constructed an argument which we then took to our main shareholder, which is the Swiss government, and explained to them that actually we would be very grateful for some money to tide us over. It's a temporary thing in order to have the cash to be able to continue to pay our staff, the number of staff that we have had in 2020, and two, that we wanted to continue to be able to invest in the programs necessary to deliver benefits in the future. And after about 3 months of conversation with the government at that level, they said, yes, we think that's the right thing to do. We do, however, give you two main conditions with that. One was a significant saving over the coming years. In other words, show us that your investments can deliver the benefits, which is fair enough. And the second one was then a raise of the retirement age of our ATCOs from 56 today in the big units to 60. Now that one is, of course, something that we didn't really need at the time because we had plenty to be getting on with managing COVID. And then, of course, you have this big conversation, which is then a social conversation, which is still ongoing. But we've nailed down the main details of that. And I'm very, very pleased that we managed to do that with our union as well. But you see as well how just even coming up and saying we would like to be able to continue to invest comes along with a huge need for work, time and resource to actually make that happen as well. And the biggest investment that we can make, the chief investment that we make, is not in our project. It's in the people. It's in the people for our future. And so we didn't stop training. We didn't stop recruiting like some other ANSPs did, because we've seen that before. We've experienced that before, and it's never worked before, because 5 or 10 years afterwards, you always have the same problem. You can't deliver enough capacity because you don't have enough people. And we today do not have the technology that allows us to mitigate that problem and that risk. Whether we'll ever be able to fully mitigate that, I doubt anyway, because I think we'll always still be reliant on people for at least the next 20 to 30 years, which makes the recruitment, selection and training all the more important, of course, in all of our considerations. Now, during COVID, as I'm sure you talked about yesterday, it became difficult to actually train people fully because there was simply not the traffic there in order to allow us to do that according to the regulations. But the creativity that was around Europe, I don't know about the rest of the world, but certainly in Europe, the amount of creativity that was there and that got generated in order to find ways to continue training, the remote training that Chris's guys put together, just amazing in the short period of time available to still continue to be able to deliver what's necessary for the future of Skyguide. It's those elements there that make a big, big difference. Those ANSPs who stopped investing in projects, those ANSPs who stopped investing in their people and in their future, they will come to regret that. They're already, in some cases, regretting some of that. I think Skyguide, we did our best to continue to recruit and to train all the way through. I think we'll struggle in a couple of years' time because we still had a hiatus because of that lack of traffic. And that also means that we need to think of different ways of doing training in the future. It's not good enough just to say, well, we've always done training this way, therefore it's going to be good enough in the future. No, it's not. We've got to think of completely different ways, and we've also got to start influencing the future regulation to make sure that what we want to do is allowed within that regulation as well, and not simply become victims of the regulation, sit there and say, well, we have what we have. I would like to get out there and to make sure that EASA thinks about how we want to train in the future. And when we look at the licensing of air traffic controllers and air traffic managers of the future, that's definitely going to be a core part of this. So at an executive level and at a board of directors level as well, the balancing act, and it's a lovely picture of a tightrope walker. I also like the picture that gets created in German as well of a Gratwanderung, so walking along the top of a mountain ridge as well. You don't want to fall off either side of that either. That is a very, very tricky thing to do. My team and I convinced that continuing to invest, if at all possible, during the sort of crisis that we've seen, is the best way to guarantee the future. Guaranteeing a future for the ANSPs, but of course we're not guaranteeing a future for the ANSPs per se, we're guaranteeing a future for the ANSPs in order to deliver a good service to our customers. And that's what gets generated by continuing to invest especially in our people, continuing to train, and continuing to come up with great new ways of looking at the training and to do that. And that brings us back to what you're going to be talking about during the rest of today. I wish you all a very, very fruitful day. I hope that you do find ways of doing that and that you find great new ways of ensuring the future of our ANSPs, the future of our service delivery to our customers. History will be kind to those who continue to invest in training.
Good. Otherwise, we will continue. And we will have now an interesting presentation from Dr. Matter. It's when an eye specialist and a coach in elite rugby meet. Then we will see what we will see now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. And welcome to my town. Welcome to Geneva. I love this town. It's an international town. And as you see this morning, the weather is always beautiful here in Geneva. I love this one. This is pretty cool. That's I love it. So I will speak about eyes, brain. So I don't know if it will be a brain or eyes, but I will speak about the human dimension. I don't know if I can use it. Morning. If I can have my slides. Yes. Okay. Oh. Do you have one I can use?
This one?
Yes. Sorry.
You had one, so I thought that you are already ready.
Okay. It's about you. It's about you. It's about your work. It's about the human dimension. I love what I heard just before. Invest in people, invest in training. That's the best. The human dimension is for us the best option. Security. How you bring people to the best security you can bring to them. And that's, this morning I will speak about the brain. Okay? I'm an ophthalmologist, a neuro-ophthalmologist, so I will speak about the eyes, the visual pathway, and the brain, and how we react to the world around us, how we move, how we can improve the visual field, how we can improve the vision, how we can be better with attention, with focus, how we can take information quickly, and how we can put people in slow motion. Neurovisual consulting start. I love the eye, I love sport. So I try to bring sport and the eye together. So I find a way to do that and to bring very high-level athletes to a level a little bit higher, to a new dimension. With the athlete, you have everything about the muscles, about the nutrition, about the tools, about everything you want, but the cognitive factor was not the first one for ears. So how to manage to give some muscles to your brain, that's where we try to go. Here you can see the name of NeuroTracker. The NeuroTracker is something, a tool, they invent that for Alzheimer patient, cognitive factor. And they think that they can retard a little bit the evolution of the illness. And from there, they think that maybe they can use it for sport, for the army, for school, for children, for adults, for many, many things where you use the cognitive. But it's our life. It's how you walk, it's how you avoid people in front of you, and that's where we go. So that's the founder of the NeuroTracker. Professor Jocelyn Fauber is in Montreal, University of Montreal, and this guy is very brilliant. For everybody who has glasses, with the progressive glasses, is one of the main leader for Essilor, which is a French trade, and that's he makes everything about the vision, about the brain, and just to try to do things like that. That's the New York Times. Keep your eyes on the ball to become a better athlete. It was just before the Super Bowl final, where the two big guys used the NeuroTracker just to improve how you to use the visual field, how to have a better vision, and how to try to be in slow motion. When I say slow motion, is something we can bring people to just because of the training. So invest in training. That's the good way. So here I have a video. So I don't know if you can just start the video. And that will just speak about the NeuroTracker. It's just a 2-minute video. I hope we can have it so you. If you have the presentation, you have just to. Oops. Okay, if it's not the case, it's we will show that maybe after. Sometimes you have something that block the video on the open of the screen. Okay, a little bit. That's everything is blocked now. Blah, blah, blah. After you will be able to try the tool. The tool is just a wall, and you have just 8 balls moving. It's very simple. 4 of the 8 balls will be in color, and after that, all the balls are yellow, and they just move, and you have just to follow these balls. And that's after a while, after a few seconds, it will stop, and you just have to say the number of the 4 balls which were different at the beginning. And it moves like that. And at the beginning, it's very slow, and it goes faster and faster and faster. And you train people like that. Very easy. So no pills, no injection, nothing, just your brain. And we speak to your brain just because of that. But we managed to, that's the normally a video, but you will have 4 balls and they move. But you will see that after. Okay, that's the human factor. The human factor is just, we can train the brain. That's not something new. We know that. If you play with a video game, if you have at school, we each day in life we just train our brain. But how we can have a new dimension? This new dimension is the cognitive dimension. In a world where everybody speaks about AI, AI is the next step. Is it really the next step? I don't know. Last week, I drive my car, and in front of me there was a car, another car coming here, and somebody walk along. My car just brake. Think that I will have an accident. My brain think nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing. There were a stop. There were just a priority, and just somebody walking. But my car think, wow, danger, stop. So my car brake. That's the new cars are like that. That's just AI. Where is the place of AI in our jobs? Where is the place of this dimension, new dimension, where we will think that the AI will learn faster than human? But human, we are cognitive. We are cognitive. That's the big difference. We have so many information in our brain. We are cognitive. My job is to do that. How you do when you go outside the subway in Paris, London, or anywhere you want to avoid people in front of you? How you do that? You don't think about that. You have okay, you go like that. That's just what you train. If you do it more, that's more easy. If you are older, sometimes you stop. You are not able more just to do these kind of things. And that's it's Tokyo and Paris, but anywhere in the world, you use these kind of things. That's Matt Ryan, is the Atlanta Falcons quarterback, and he just said that he working our bodies, but when you try to use differently your brain, to train your brain, you will be a better. It's key as a quarterback to be able to see things and how to relate to each other quickly. I speak about slow motion. He say quickly. That's the same thing. When you have athletes, goalkeeper, here in this town, the best team is the hockey team. So we have a lot of hockey team goalkeeper. And when they say, you put me in slow motion, I have more time to bring the information, and everything is slower. But react quickly. That's where we can bring these people. That's Romain Grosjean. It was just before a race in Austin in the US, and we trained him 1 hour before the race. It was the first time we did it. It was just before the race, so we just hope that the race was better. He was a Formula One driver. Now he's IndyCars in the US a driver, and we train him with a grey just before the. Here it's a lot of things, but the more important is going in slow motion. That means that this guy drive at, I don't know, 300 kilometers or something like that, and say, I can see things better around me. We don't develop his visual field. We bring him how to use better his visual field. That means when you have a lot of screen in front of you, how you can go from one screen to the other screen, how you can catch the information, how you can be faster to react, how you can be more relaxed, how you can have more attention, be longer at focus. That's what we try to bring to people. We have e-athletes. E-athletes, it's something when you are older than 17, you are very old, or something like that. Okay, so it's not for me anymore, but it's about the age. The best performer are maybe 17, 18, 16, 15, and that's. But even with this kind of young guys, just crazy about the hours, they are just in front of a screen day at night. We can bring to them, they are better to bring all the information and to react to the information. Neurovision Consulting is a team. Two person of my team are just there at the back, but it's a team with orthoptists, so how your eye move, how your eyes react together, with my colleague Dr. Philippe Desmonts here in Geneva, and Monsieur Grégory Marquet, which is a coach, and it's one of the best user of the neuro tracker. We use this kind of tool, but we use also a lot of tools just to bring this kind of things, that the BATAX, the DynaVision, and the Blaze spots. That's everything is made to improve everything the cognitive. That's the center where I work here in Geneva. We do first a huge baseline. The huge baseline, sometimes it's 2 to 3 hours, just about the eyes, the visual pathway, just about that. And when we have high-level athletes and we speak with them, they never had that. They had, you see your visual field, some exams, but never a full exam about the eyes, the eye movement, visual field, etc. That means that we go in this way to have the more information we can have about how they use their eyes, how we can improve their vision and the use of the visual field. Don't forget that it's vision. Vision, it's you speak to your brain through your eyes. 80% of all information your brain receives is through the eyes. 80%. So why not to use the eyes? It's the best option. It's the best option to speak to your brain. Visual pathway, 2 eyes, the optic nerves, the brain, and you have some part of the information from the right eye go to the left brain, and left eye to the right brain. That's easy, common, but that make your visual field. Okay, the visual field is huge. How you can use it? When you have a problem, that's just about where you can have problem, and that's the different level you can have a problem with the visual field. When we speak about the vision, if you take a ball arriving, your brain first will detect some movement, and after that will be able to tell you what is the object. That's how it works. So you have a magnocellular pathway, which is with the movement. And after that, you have a parvocellular, which is slow, details, color, and the other one is just the thresholds. We have two streams. One is called the dorsal stream with the magnocellular, the fast. It's the where. The dorsal stream is the where. It's a visual pathway. The other one, the stream, the ventral stream, is the what. It's more with the parvocellular. That means it's the comparison that's bring to the information. We record the eye movement, how your eyes moves, and where do you see when we give you an image? You have 8 seconds just to watch an image, and we can see exactly where you go to bring information. we ask these athletes just to bring the more information they can in 8 seconds. And you see that with basketball, with this big guy, is very vertical, and with the Formula One, is very horizontal. That's their sport. But in 8 seconds, they have to catch information. And we do that, and we can exactly show where they see and where we can improve their eye movement. We can record also the movement, the saccade, and how your eyes go from the left to the right, and show to the people. I will not talk today about concussion. We are able to reduce the time to return to the play after concussion. We are able to do that because we are able to speak to the brain of this athlete after a concussion. That's just, it's not magic. It's just that we, through the eyes, through this kind of exercise, we just speak again to the brain. Some athletes, they say, okay, you did reset. What is reset? I don't know. But we don't use medicine, we don't use pills and so things like that. Injection, we speak a lot about the Nadal injection, but anyway, we don't use that. Just bring your brain. Yeah, it's attention, working memory, vision, perception. It's the function, everything you can do. The speed. The speed is something very important. Let you more time to have the information, treat the information, and react. That seems very simple. How you react to something. If you have more time, that's it better. It's better. It's not increasing the time. It's just how your brain will react. School, all the children we have, normally for sport at the beginning, are better at school. Why? Just attention and focus. Just that. They are able to be more focused when they are at school. It's just about attention. It's just to do this kind of exercise. Normally at the beginning it was in sport, but now we have here in Geneva with a private school program, and we integrate these kind of things with the children when the parents say, okay, we try. We go in new field. We go in a field like Alzheimer. We go in field like deficit of attention with the children. We go in field with manager. I have some lawyer. They say they are better in negotiation after 4 or 5 hours. Okay, it's just about attention. Performance, how to be the best, that's the human dimension. What do you bring to your people to be better? A lot of things. A lot of things. The place of work, how they are, how they can be relaxed. But the more important is how they can be focused, how they can manage many screens. I went to a Sky Guide and I saw the place. And that's speak to me and my team. It's just how you can be with so many screens, how you can react, and how you can be better in the cognitive way, improve. And that's important. I spoke about the dorsal stream, about the ventral stream, the where and the what. And we have also in ophthalmology the perception, first order, second order. That's more about neuro-ophthalmology. Down to speed up response time, that's a key point for you. How you can react faster. How you can be longer with attention and react faster. That's two things, they are not always together. Because when you work, you have the period where you are excellent. You have everybody has his or her problem in life. That's something that we have to integrate and to make clear, accurate, and tactical decision. That's important. Well, the cognitive barriers. That's a nightmare for you. That's a nightmare for our life. It's when you think that you are the best. It's when you think that you know everything. When you think that what is rare is rare. When you think that what is frequent is frequent. When you think that in Geneva it's always sunny. That's really this is what we have to fight. This is where the human dimension is really. I don't know if I can fight these kind of things because each human has his own history, has his own things into his or her brain. And that's the cognitive bias is something, is like a nightmare. Because when you think that you know the job, it's easy, it's always the same thing, that's something must alert you, and how you treat at this time this information. And that's, it's not your brain as the lead, but your brain sometimes is not your best friend. It's like the brain in my car. Just say, wow, accident, brake. Nothing happened. It was just this artificial intelligence say, okay, now I have to stop the car, but my brain say, not that. Just be careful of this one. That's so many things you can have. They made a codex of this kind of things, and that's you can see after everything. But that's just the thing we must avoid. So except the video, but one of the video was just what you can do at the time of lunch if you want to try the neuro tracker, see this ball moving. Just at the beginning, we are everybody is lost, okay, even me, and after a while they perform better and better. Once again, we had nearly the best athlete in some sports. Why they come, why they stay, I hope we bring something to them. We have also children. We have also adults who want to come. I have a small office in Los Angeles. In this office, we have people coming just for be a better driver. We have some actors. They just want to come just to have a better memory, or maybe, I hope, to act differently. And I have people just coming to say, okay, I want to keep my cognitive skills better, and I want to improve that. It's not magical. It's training. It's not something we can't explain. It's just through the eye how we can speak to your brain. And when I say one or two words about concussion, that was really something incredible for us, just to help people after a concussion to be a better. The first athlete I saw say, "I have children. I can be anymore with my children. Movement, noise, lights when I go to a museum, etc." And after a few days, this guy was just a normal person. And we have some athletes, they stop their sport for months, and they just come and okay, they can do it again. It's just for me as an ophthalmologist, it's just a field I love. If you go to see a doctor for the eyes, it's the vision. It's something your vision is 0.1, 0.2, 0.6, 1.0, 1.2, or in English 20/20 or 30/20. It's just a vision. I don't like that. I practice that each day. Each day it's vision. The only thing for me is the functional. How you react, how you are in your world. So we will be for you after for question. And once again, thank you for the invitation. And I hope I bring you to not a new world. your world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? Hugo? I don't know.
I hope, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation, very interesting. I had a question about his training. You said you have to put a lot of work in, eh? You have to train and train and train. So I have two questions on that. One is, do you have specific training for these specific things that you want to learn? Eh? For instance, you said somebody wants to increase the memory. Do they do the same training as people with concussions, or is it totally something else? That's the first question. And the second question is, like, what kind of repetition do you need for that training? Is it something that you do every week for years, or is it something that you can do as a one-off and then you really improve? I'm just curious.
Okay, thank you for the question. The first thing, we do normally a baseline. And after the baseline, we can see which field we have to improve. That's the first thing. After that, we speak with the person about what the person wants. If it's for sport, we try to think about this sport, how we can improve. If it's for something just with a screen around, we do this part of things. So it's not the same for everyone. Okay, it's not. You can use the tool. You can buy the tool. You can be at home with your screen and follow the balls. Okay, just buy a better video games. It will be just more fun. But we have to train. The question of how many times? Sometimes we just take the patient for 3 days. That's for a concussion. After a concussion, 3 days, and we train 3 times a day, and with different tools, but the nerve tracker is the main tool. For athletes, 1 or 2 per week. That's about the training we'll have. It could be a period. You can stop and you can do it again. When you do it again, your performance are a little bit lower, but after a while you are at your level. And what is the level? For example, a lot of people ask us to select. How we select about the cognition? Is it the first time you use the tool you are here or here? Or is it after a while? Normally, it's after a while, because some people they are here and the maximum will be here, and some are here and they go higher. So it's about we have a lot of person who come once a week, and you can use it also at home. But we love the 3D, we love the big screen, we love to be. It's an inclusion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugo. I forgot actually that when you pose questions, it will make sense that you quickly just say your name and the organization. Sorry, I forgot. So it's Hugo from LVNL. Other questions? Otherwise, we will have time then as well in the panel. Laurent?
Hello, Laurent Martinez from ENAC. Thank you for your presentation. If you are here, I think there is an obvious question. Have you identified any cooperation field with any NSP or training organization? Or maybe SkyGuide has already a plan to use your technology and services to train, or is it confidential? I don't know.
So
Plan is maybe a bit too much, but there are some ideas, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, we spoke about, and the best thing for me was to go on place to see. It's never our world. It's the world of the people we train, and that's we have to think. When I have children, I love the parents or the coach. When I have high-level athletes, I always want something with. just that it's always a team reaction. For me, it's an evidence to go in the field of the cognitive skills. It's a huge field. It's the field of today and tomorrow, and we will improve with that. It's just here a tool. We use this one. We have excellent result, but it's a tool. And yes, it makes sense. To answer to your question, it makes sense because of the stress, because of the many screen, because of repetition. Each day seems to be maybe the same, but how you react to one thing, how you react to two things. We try to do also not only the screen, but you can put maths. You have 2 plus 2, very easy, but if you put maths, it comes, your brain is react differently. We try to, with the hockey player, we have, they have to do it with like a practice day sport. So we try to find the best environment we can use to help the people. But it makes sense, yes. And we improve. Excellent question. I speak, no, excellent question, because I spoke yesterday with somebody of the army, pilot. It costs a lot. It costs a lot to form somebody. You have the Top Gun Mavericks, but it costs so much. How you can keep somebody 1 more year or 2 more years into the job? That's help. We are just a piece of the puzzle. We are not the puzzle. We are always a part of everything we can bring to this human dimension. But yes, and we have a famous actor in Los Angeles, and they just come to stay longer on stage. So yes.
Thank you very much. And as said, there will be more time to ask questions then in the
So
panel.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you
the
very
invitation, and I love chocolates, and thank you so
Where is
much.
the-
Right, I've been facilitating up until now, and now you get me to give you a presentation. About 2 years ago, I was asked to look into what regulation we would need to make the virtual centre reality with air traffic controllers, air traffic management. And the answer was, well, we don't need to change anything. But obviously that's an easy answer, and we had to go and confirm that with our regulator, with our NSA. Very unfortunately, Nielsen is not able to make it today, a last-minute conflicting agenda item. So I'll be presenting this whole thing together for both of us. It was a joint presentation that we did in Madrid at the last WAC, and it's been augmented now with some of the findings and results from what we've been doing. The regulation is the end part, but what happens before? What do we have in the air traffic controller's head that they need to be able to manage the virtual center that Alex Bristol just told us about previously in his keynote speech? I'm going to give you a short overview of the virtual center just so that you understand exactly what we're talking about. So basically, Switzerland is a tiny little country in the middle of Europe, and we've got 2 centers. We've got Geneva and we've got Zurich. That's not very efficient. And the idea is to have 1 virtual center. We will still have 2 physical locations. We're not changing that. But we want the underlying technology to be the same across the country. Makes a lot of sense. That way at least we can mutualize it. And we also want to be able to have air traffic controllers being able to control the airspace from either Zurich or from Geneva. And I'm not a technician, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to be looking at how they manage to do cloud-based services and all of that, but I'm going to be talking to you about the air traffic controllers. So we're moving from this doubling up of our services into something that is uniform across the whole country. And what does that take from the licensing perspective? And here again, I think the license is the end bit. So we've gone through a bunch of implementation steps. We're starting with upper airspace, flight level 2, 4, 5 and above. We're starting with a regular and recurrent takeover because we believe that there is a learning effect there. But what we don't want to do is end up double training the air traffic controllers. Because if they've got to have a full unit endorsement for Geneva and for Zurich, they can't actually maintain that with the currency, and it costs an awful lot of money. And we're looking at possible tools, procedures, processes, constraints that we would need to put in place to make this reality. At the end, we want all the air traffic controllers to be endorsed so that they can work either Geneva or Zurich airspace, or possibly even the whole of Swiss airspace, depending on what we're looking at, and having all the support tools and processes in place, and all of those deployed. So what we've done today, well, we started off, and I'll give you the various different steps, but we've identified that the core skills of air traffic controllers remain. We've done that in simulations. The scanning, the turning, the climbing, the descending, the speed vectors, all of those things are valid whether you're working in Geneva or whether you're working in Zurich. We're relieved about that because it would have been really worrying if that wasn't the case. But we've managed to confirm that. And it is actually very supportive and helpful and useful. We're looking to identify tools, equipment that are going to be able to support the air traffic controllers in less familiar or unfamiliar airspace, and then the procedures as well. And then we're going to look at constraints after that. What do constraints mean? Maybe it's only 50% of the traffic to start with. Maybe it's only 20%. Maybe it's only at night time. Maybe we can only work military off or under certain other conditions and constraints. And right at the end, what's left over will be the geo-specific competence that we require. And that will all bring us up to what I'm calling abilities, because it's not just competence. Competence, you can acquire it through learning, through training, but here we're looking at a plethora of abilities that the air traffic controller needs to be able to manage unfamiliar airspace. To date, we've run 3, I would say, paper-based virtual workshops that were held during COVID. So they were on Teams, not the best when you're running brainstorm workshops. We had air traffic controllers there. We had air traffic controllers who know about the virtual center. Human performance, human factors experts are very important to understand what's going on. Operational experts, because they need to say what the operational situation is within the 2 centers. And we came out with a sort of letter to Father Christmas, dare I say. Dear Father Christmas, we would like a tool that does this, that does that. We need to have this. Or if we increase the capacity, we're going to be decreasing the safety. No, we don't want that, so we'll increase the safety and decrease the capacity. And a bunch of competence requirements. But this was really just talking to air traffic controllers and getting things what they thought it would look like if they had to control a different, unfamiliar piece of airspace. And then we thought, well, now let's go and see what it looks like in reality. So we sat them down at the beginning of this year, real, live, 3-dimensional people. It was great relief to have them there. First of all, in January, we took some Geneva controllers and we put them in the Zurich simulator, Zurich airspace, and we didn't give them any training on that airspace whatsoever. We had the team of controllers there, planner and exec, on the simulator. In fact, we had 2 teams. And sitting next to each team of controllers, we had an expert controller from Zurich. And this expert controller was the tool or process. So we had the guinea pigs and the tool or process as human beings. And then we had the human factors experts, the ops experts, the safety experts standing behind and taking note of every single question that the team of generic air traffic controllers asked the expert air traffic controller, because that indicated to us what information they needed. And that way we were then able, with debriefing, with HF debriefing sheets as well, situational awareness, workload, perception, et cetera, to get another wish list and be able to compare this to the workshops that we'd run and say, well, actually, they can do it better, or we need more of that, or we hadn't thought of that. So this is really research and exploratory stuff. We did exactly the same thing in reverse in March. We took the Zurich air traffic controllers and put them on Geneva airspace. We had a certain baseline of tools. We're not quite at the same level in the two centres, but we got a beta version of the tools so that we would be at the same level to baseline it, because we wanted the results to be comparable. And as I said, we based it on the gap analysis workshops that we'd run last year. We also used some of the Wave 1 work that we'd done in CESAR 2020, for those who know PJ 1006, which did exactly this, but where we had HMI issues and such like, because we were taking air traffic controllers from a different country. And the outcomes were to confirm or reject the findings from the workshops and from the CESAR work, and identification of further needs, whether they be technical or procedural. The high-level outcomes, well, we found out that actually air traffic controllers can work on unfamiliar airspace. Admittedly, they need the human tool next to them or some form of support. We're not denying that, but once they've got that, it actually works quite well. The skills remain the same, as I said, which is really good. They're very useful, and the support tools help. We have a support tool that's installed in Zurich, and we're busy installing it in Geneva, called New Route Handling, and it has been identified as one of the biggest support tools for the air traffic controllers, and they were able to manage large quantities of traffic in very unfamiliar airspace. After one run, they were actually doing really well. We managed to put military on, we managed to put some weather in. Interestingly, when we put weather in, it makes it easier, because they don't have the routes, they don't have the waypoints, they don't need to know that. They just need to focus on separating the aircraft and getting them out of the airspace as fast as possible. All simulations were handled safely. There were no separation minimum infringements at all, despite the fact that we had 50 to 80% traffic in those simulations. We did identify a number of geo-specific challenges, exit flight levels, waypoints, such like, which obviously the tools will have to provide. I mean, I'm not saying we can go live tomorrow on this, but it's been fairly encouraging. We've identified differences in working methods. Interestingly, in such a small country, whether we ask for a flight level or whether we wait for a flight level to be offered, those sorts of things. Now, the question for the next set of simulations is, are these working methods important? Are they actually going to be a showstopper or not? Do we need to go and retrain the air traffic controller on these? I think not, but we're going to find out in September and November. And the younger ATCOs are more at ease. The younger ATCOs use the tools differently. The older air traffic controllers have a tendency to go, I can do this, and if I really need to, I'll use the tool, or started off using the tool and then were very proud of themselves after 3 or 4 runs to be able to say, I didn't need to use the tool. Whereas the younger air traffic controllers, well, the tool's there, I'll use it. And I'll be coming back to that in a bit, because this presentation is in 2 parts, about the learning and competence and learning for future. The incoming coordinations now still need to be simulated, and this is going to be important, because where we can probably identify waypoints and geospecific features within the area of responsibility, once we go outside that, they will be less familiar. We need to have means to be able to identify them. Telephone layout was another one. We've got things in rows. They need to be geographically located, because that way the air traffic controller knows, aircraft's calling from there. I'll press there on the telephone screen. So small things like that that can be really supportive as well. So what we're doing, we've got a sort of process or flow, is we run the simulations. We then identify a number of challenges or needs. We then challenge those needs and say, well, if you didn't have that, you think you need that, but what happens if you don't have it? Is it really important or not? And we may say yes, we may say no. If it's not important, well, we throw it out of the list. And if it is important, it will go out into our virtual center program, where we were requesting a tool or a process. And it may need more refinement, and so we go back into the validation plan for the next set of simulations, and we do this process. We're probably going to iterate it about 4 times. And with different scenarios, different configurations, we obviously still need to look at non-nominal situations, at emergency situations. We need to determine how low we can actually go. I mentioned in the beginning, we're looking at upper airspace, flight level 245 and above. What happens when we go lower than that? How complex does it get? Would that mean that the nighttime doesn't work because we've got the inbound and outbound traffic during the day? These are all open questions still. So it is very much a research environment. So we need to challenge and verify the findings. We need to check skill fade is another big one. And this is going to be interesting. We've had January and March simulations. We're going to have September and November simulations. We've got about 6 to 9 months between them. So how much of the skills that were acquired during the simulations, the learnings that happened during the runs, are going to be transferable into the September and November simulation. So we're taking partially the air traffic controllers that ran the January-March simulations into the autumn simulations, so we can see if they still remember things. I'm hoping that they do a little bit, but you never know. We're going to also further explore challenges and needs, waypoints, areas of responsibility, incoming coordinations, emergencies, so on and so forth. So we've got a list, again, another Father Christmas list of what we would like to check before we go live with this. There's going to come a point where we're going to have to go live, and then we'll see what that looks like. So as I mentioned, we need to look into how we're going to actually be doing the learning versus the training. And here I'm using a vocabulary that's maybe I've developed a little bit. It's training to me is when you're training somebody over and over again to do the same thing, and finally they manage to do it. Or you're teaching them, a bit like Pavlov's dog, you know, you teach them, when you ring the bell, they're going to get food, and afterwards they salivate because when you ring the bell because they're expecting food. Whereas learning is more of an individual path, it's more of an exploration, it's more of something that people go and do by themselves. But also training for today versus learning for tomorrow, where today, and again, this is maybe an exaggeration, the academy or training organization goes to the operations and says, what do you need? The operations say, well, we need this, that, and that. Fine. They go along, they write a training plan, they go to the authority, they get the training plan approved, they come back, they start training the air traffic controllers. All of that has taken a year, 2 years, 3 years, so it's pretty much for the past. Whereas we need to now start looking with the advance in technology to be able to learn for tomorrow and have people with different skill sets moving forward on that. The idea also is to decrease the attrition rate. We have a big attrition rate at the end of unit training, and we have a big transition training area. And the idea would be to really close this gap and look at it from a holistic point of view, so that the people that we're recruiting aren't being recruited simply for the initial training, but they're being recruited for the end unit competence that is required, and the training or the learning and competence is a holistic environment in this sense. So now looking at licensing, competence and licensing. As I said before, the regulation and the license is the end product. It's what we want at the end. It's the stamp, it's the validation that yes, you can do this. But there's a whole lot of stuff that happens before that. First of all, we need to know the environment. We need to know the sorts of tools and processes, procedures that we need. We need to have a list of competence requirements. What are the competencies that are required from the air traffic controller so that they can actually manage this environment? And then they need to learn, they need to develop so that they can acquire this competence, and then we validate them. This is important because there is the idea that if we change the regulation, we change what's written on the license, we're actually changing what's inside the air traffic controller's brain, and then it'll be okay. And we'll just change the unit endorsement, and then they can use another unit. They can manage another unit. So we need to look at learning and competence in a VUCA world, in a world where technology is evolving ever more fast and is increasing, and where the skill sets are not the same as they were 20, 40, or 50 years ago. And I'm going to take you outside air traffic control, just to give you some examples. My 19-year-old son, almost 20-year-old son, when you show him the telephone on the left, he's going to go, well, I don't know what to do with that. There's nothing to swipe, there's nothing to pinch, there's not even anything to press. It's useless. And in fact, if he does find out how to dial, the only thing it does is phone. I mean, honestly, does anybody have a phone that only phones at the moment in their house? Celine does. On the right-hand side, you take my 96-year-old stepfather. I think some of you have told you about him recently. We tried to get him to use a smartphone. He is not stupid. He ran one of the biggest power plants in South Africa in his day. It's sitting in a drawer, it's not charged, and he does not see the use. He sat down with his daughter over Christmas and took out his book and said, okay, now I've got this really expensive piece of technology. I'm going to do it right. And so to answer a phone call, writes it down. Step 1, find the phone. Step 2, find the green button. Step 3, remember whether you've got to swipe left, right, or up or down, etc. Needless to say that every time the phone rang, well, by the time he'd gone through all his steps, the phone had stopped ringing. It just wasn't working. 2 completely different skill sets. Same apparatus in itself, but the technology has moved forward. Now, what do we do with that? Well, we're moving in a world from human-held knowledge to system-held data. When I trained as an air traffic controller, back, if you believe my children, when the dinosaurs were still alive, we had to learn all the waypoints, we had to learn all the altitudes, we had to learn all the geographical features. I can still tell you how high La Dole is in altitudes and how high Mont Blanc is as well, because we had to learn all of this. We had to learn all the location indicators, spent hours and hours and hours doing this. But honestly, today, Google is my friend. I look it up, and actually all our air traffic controllers have iPads at the position so they can look things up. Do I need to spend hours and hours learning this? No. The system has this information. It needs, now the skill is to be able to retrieve the information. It's not about knowing it, it's about retrieving it. And so the system obviously has to produce this information in a human-friendly manner, and the human has to know how to go and get the information, like going into the telephone and finding out how to answer it, or actually find the phone number so you can call someone. We want to bring initial training and unit training to overlap more, so that we're going more in depth rather than having differences where we're still learning waypoints and location indicators, but they're not useful. Let's maybe stop learning that, and let's start learning things that are actually relevant to the unit requirements. So we're moving from fixed training to flexible learning. Again, here the idea is to move from something that is set in stone and that was probably written about 5 or 10 years ago in the regulation. I mean, I started in the rulemaking drafting group in EASA in 2009. We're still using the same regulation today with the same requirements in the annex on the common core content. So there is a need to maybe not set things completely in stone, but say, well, what do we need as a performance? What learning do we need to have to be able to achieve the requirements that we want? So we're moving from a training culture to a learning culture, getting people to involve, engage in what they want to do, but also taking people from where they are and moving them to the competencies that are necessary. And for an example, we could take, in an ab initio course, let's say we have a pilot and an IT guru. Are we going to be giving them the same courses on aircraft performance, on geography, on MET, and on the usage of IT equipment? It's not necessary to give them the same things, because the pilot will actually know a lot about aircraft performance, but maybe not a lot about how to retrieve information out of a database. So we need to adapt, and they need to adapt as well. So we're looking more at learning paths, individualized learning paths. I've given an example of 4 here, where you can follow them through. The size of the bubbles represents the time that the person would spend on that. They will meet up in some places and they will be different in others. Some people will need some things more than others. But the idea is to achieve the target competencies at the end, where everybody actually acquires what is necessary in the most efficient and lean manner, because they're learning what they need to learn and not a set syllabus that everybody has to follow. Obviously, this has its challenges, and we can do it in various different ways. We talk about blended learning, we talk about peer learning, we talk about self-study, we talk about coaching, facilitators, all of these people that are going to be coming around the people and helping them to actually know what they need. Formative assessments, rather than summative assessments, so that we know when the person has acquired a certain competence, so they can move on to the next step or build upon it, rather than just saying, well, you got 75% right in reciting the location indicators, move on to the next bit, but actually I've forgotten all the location indicators the next day because I wrote them down, I learned for that particular test. So as I said, moving from assessment to competence itself, moving to formative assessments where we help the person understand where they still need to do some learning and then move them into that space so that they can. And then the famous one, what about the regulation? Well, we still need compliance, we still need oversight. We still need to make sure that we're not drifting into failure. That's why I use the word conformance. We don't want to just tick a box. We want to be performant, because performance is lean, to use a very sort of sexy word at the moment. We all want to be lean, we all want to be agile, but we also want the system to perform, the system as a whole in aviation. So we want to reach these target performances, but we don't want to just tick boxes to get there. We do, however, want oversight, because if we don't, we'll be going down a path and there is a great risk of drift into failure, and then we have a safety issue. So we have the second pair of eyes, or the third set of eyes, looking at us and making sure that we're staying on the straight and narrow, we're still acquiring and achieving the performance that we want for the system as a whole. So coming back to this, we know the environment and what we want to do. Once we've defined that, we look at the competence requirements. People learn, they develop, and this is individual learning paths with the support and environment and help of the academies. They acquire the competence, and then yes, we will have a rubber stamp in the end to say yes, they can do this. And obviously this has the added advantage that for recruitment, we know what we're looking for because we know what the profile is. So to wrap it up, relevant air traffic controller competence, not learning stuff that we could get in the system, which allows for geo-independence. So we have the relevant tools, support tools, processes, procedures, the flexibility to adapt. And this is thanks to technology, because 20 years ago this was not possible. We didn't have the computing power to have this information in the system or to have the support tools that we have today. And these tools are in support of deployment of the virtual center, but they also require a paradigm shift in the way that we get people to acquire their relevant performance and competence. And then operational benefits, obviously, Alex was talking about, well, we invest in people, but we need a return on investment. The conversation that Skyguide had with the Swiss government to say, well, if we stop investing, you won't have a return on investment. If we continue investing, there'll be something, but that is a big argument. And then performance-oriented or outcomes-based regulations. And this is also important, having the conversation with EASA to say, don't set the how we get there in stone. Tell us what the performance is that we need to acquire. We can work out how to get there. If we've got a bunch of pilots who want to become air traffic controllers, we're not going to be giving them the same courses and lessons as we will for IT gurus or for school teachers. It's just different. And we must work together with our supervisory authorities, which is why I do regret that Niels wasn't able to make it today, because this was a joint presentation. We've been working on this together for 2 years. We see another 2 to 3 years work in this. So thank you very much for your attention.
Are there questions?
Antoine Pierre, ENAC. Thank you for this presentation, very interesting and innovative. I have 3 questions. First one, what was the philosophy at the beginning of this project? Was it to have a contingency ATC center? Second one is, what was the ratio in the simulations regarding peak hours on the opposite center? And third one, did you implement unusual or abnormal situations? And what were your learnings on that?
Okay, thank you. I'll try and remember all 3. The first one, the cost-benefit analysis or business case for the virtual center is not within my remit. So I think I'll just refrain from answering that one, because there are other people who are far better at doing that. But I think one of the big things was not having two completely different systems in a very small country, which is not cost effective. Further than that, I'll just leave it. With regards to the second, I remember the third question, which was abnormal and contingencies. We have not done that yet. We're looking to run those simulations in September and November, and also Q1 2023, because we've got to do it in a sort of, I would say, scientifically managed way, because we do want to get the relevant results out so that we know what we're looking at. And the
about the ratio on the simulations compared to busy hours or peak hours.
We started off with fairly low traffic initially, 40–50% of the traffic. I've got Patrick in the here who can also tell us, but we went up to about 80%, I think, or maybe even a bit higher than that. Yeah, a little bit more than 80% of the peak hours of the maximum sector capacity. And that was in the first set of simulations.
Thank you.
Celine?
Thank you very, very much. That clears everything to me. Very good presentation. First question is, you very quickly at the beginning, and I truly understand that licensing is at the end, but once we are at the end of your presentation, will you do as training just once it's done, once imagine your virtual center is on, a new ATCO will have the qualification in both centers, so 2 qualifications, or like, or will it be just one? But then how do you regularly train on the big one?
So the idea is at the end we'll have one qualification. Rather than having LSAG for Geneva Upper and LSAZ for Zurich Upper, we'll have LSAS. And we've identified pretty much 3 populations. One is the ab initios who will come into this world as it is, and that's the way they'll be learning. We've got the current air traffic controllers, sort of the massive current ones who will have to, if you remember the bar chart, they will still have to have that little bit of training or competence acquisition. And then we've got a certain number of people who maybe are towards the end of their career, are about to retire, who will probably never acquire the full LSAS endorsement.
That's, yeah, okay, great. And then I will be very keen next seminar if you go further on to see what happens under flight level 245. Because obviously everyone has in his head that something is really more easy to do with non-geographical issues above than below, obviously. But so thank you very, very much for this presentation again.
Thank you. And yes, the lower we go, the more difficult.
Yeah.
That's why we started up.
Any last question? Otherwise, as said, in the panel, you will have time. Great.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thomas Bierwagen, who comes from DFS and is going to talk to us about cloud-based ATSIPs.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. It's an honor and it's a challenge to take you into the ATSIP world. May I have my slides, please? And to figure out to what extent, perfect. To what extent it's a challenge to me, I'd like to get to know my audience. So please raise your hands, all of you who have an ATCO background. Who has an ATCO background? Okay, thanks. Who is dealing with ATSEP in terms of training or whatever? Okay, a very few. Is there anybody acting in the context of a competent authority? 1, 2, excellent. Thank you. So yes, it is a challenge to me, but I try to do my very best to talk about aspects of preparing ATSEPs on a cloud-based world. What I'm to handle your expectations, what I'm not really focusing on is how to design the training in bits and pieces, because that's what we, the training people, have learned, that's what we are good in. I'd like to draw your attention more on what's happening before training starts. And what we experienced in DFS is, again, that's what you know, training very often is at the back end of the process. So if you have a major technological change ongoing, 2 years later, people start thinking about training. And that may create major obstacles. And that's what, what I would like to make you aware of, because that has huge implications on training ATSEP for this new world. But before we can talk about that, we have to talk about what is it, cloud infrastructure. It's quite a buzzword like artificial intelligence. Everybody likes it. And I'm pretty sure that all your organizations are dealing with projects on technical infrastructure to be moved into cloud environments. So, but what really is it? Definitely, it's not moving your ATCO working position into the cloud. And you know that. That's not what we are talking about. So what is it in a bit more detail? There are different perspectives on cloud infrastructure. There is an ATCO perspective, and I would like to word it something like this. That's a typical working environment. It may be redesigned in the future a bit, but in principle, it's something like that. And the typical perspective is you don't like a lot of change. You would like to continue your work as you have learned it, maybe adapting to some new technology, some new support tools or stuff like that at your working position, but you don't want a lot of change. This implies, and that's very often hidden to the normal ATCO, that downstairs in the technical rooms you have lots of racks full of technical equipment. Is it computers? Is it communication environment? This is a voice communication environment, for example, and everything is occupied with technology downstairs. So what's the ATSEP perspective on cloud infrastructure? And that's quite remarkable. It is something like everything changes. Downstairs, everything changes. And as a kind of visualization, the technical rooms are emptied. There's no more technology downstairs. Yeah, well, a bit network environment, and of course, that's a bit black and white. But that's what's ongoing. I don't want to say it's a revolution on the technical level, but it's a major change. We have a perspective from the competent authority point of view, and I can only assume or try to assume what it is. And I'd like to put it in words like this. This process has to be oversighted. We have to oversight the complete environment. You know this terminology from EASA, this total system safety approach. So all of that has to be taken into account for safety oversight. So, or to put it in very simple words, this empty room have to be properly oversighted, and all what from a technological point of view is behind. And then we have the back office engineering. We in DFS, we call them the product managers. They try to bring new technology into operations. And their perception may be something like that, like, what a nice playground. Now we have lots of new opportunities. We don't have to take care of delivering lots of computers downstairs. We have complete other means to deliver our applications to the ADCO working position so that the ADCOs can do their job. So very different perspectives on cloud infrastructure. Now, stepping out of the environment of navigation services, your own personal environment. And I'm pretty sure I will see a lot of hands raised now again. What's your experience with cloud-based infrastructure, your personal one? So who of you uses file service, cloud-based file service, like iCloud, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive? That's almost everybody. Who of you uses streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and so on? That's most of you. Who uses an app to connect to your car? Oh, quite a lot. Interesting. And the final one, who makes use of digital web services for your personal tax declaration? I need the German hands, that's mandatory in Germany. Oh, okay, again, lots of you. So what we can learn from this is in our normal private life, cloud-based infrastructures and services are much more common already and are taken for normal. That's the new normal in our technological world, and most of us make use of it. De facto, in navigation services technology, we do not yet make as much use of it. We are working on that. And of course, it's a question of labeling. For example, in my organization, I keep saying that in the tower business, we already make use of cloud infrastructures. We don't label it like that. But the as situation window on a tower in Germany is not necessarily created downstairs, but at another location. That's a type of cloud-based service already. So we take back home, we all live in cloud-based worlds already. And most of us don't really have major issues on that. If we use it for private purposes, we just do it. It's comfortable, it's easy. Now, what we have to look at is how can we make use of these benefits we recognize in our private life in a safe and sustainable manner in navigation services technology. And for that purpose, we have to have a look a bit more in detail in the technical words on how does the change look like. So first of all, as I said, downstairs we have lots of computers and technical equipment which we use today. A computer, for example, you can break further down in different elements. So first of all, you have a computer, a server, including a hard disk or something like that, so storage. Underneath, you have some network connection, network environment. In the computer, you have an operating system, something which experts call middleware. And then on top, you have the application, one-time data and code. And that's what our ADCEPs are trained on. So if you look at our ATSEP in the ACCs or in the towers, they are trained on maintaining, setting up and maintaining that type of system. That's quite a wide spread of competence. So they need to move in service, to configure service, to put an operating system on, to put an application on, to bring it in operational use, to analyze failure situations on all these different levels. Quite widespread. And that's the typical in-house infrastructure we see today. Of course, it's much more than that because we have lots of different systems and equipment, but that's it in principle. Now, what is ongoing in terms of cloud infrastructure? So, first of all, we can take this computer and put it somewhere else. We can break it up a bit more, and then we can recognize that there were some elements, that's the light blue elements, so network environment, storage, server, virtualization, which is pretty much independent from our business. So that part of the infrastructure, other industries like banking industry or any web shop or whatever, uses exactly the same. And on top of that, we have quite specific parts of the infrastructure which is specific to air navigation services. So, first of all, we try to divide this in two parts. And the one we call, for example, hypervisor, and the other one we call virtual machine. And when we have done so, it's quite reasonable to think about the hypervisor part can be dealt with by other people than the virtual machine, because the virtual machine and all what is in there is specific to air navigation services. So we mandatorily need ATSEP there. For the underlying infrastructure, that's not really necessary. That can be done by any data center people. They are highly trained on keep that infrastructure up and running, independent from what application is running on top of that. And so that's the first step into a cloud-based infrastructure. And there's one very important aspect in it, and that is if we take today's standard in-house infrastructure, very typically we find this computer is almost idle. So CPU usage 10%, 20%. And of course, if I take that, put it somewhere else, it's the same. But if I take it and put on this physical computer not one virtual machine, but a number of them, the usage of the infrastructure, for example, measured in CPU usage, can be increased significantly. So this computer can do much more than running just one application, one air navigation services application. And now that's more or less the comparable infrastructure. So that's the analogy in a cloud-based world for the in-house computer downstairs. And that's the analogy for an air navigation services application, like your air situation window, or like your arrival management system, or others you make use of in the ATCO world. And now, what I can do besides of that, I can put in more infrastructure like that. So more machines, more hypervisor processes, more virtual machines. And now we have to talk about some more benefits of a cloud-based infrastructure like that? Because here is some very clever technology underneath, which you do not even recognize. So what happens if this machine fails? You get a frozen picture, you get a fallback picture, and then you continue working. What happens when this virtual machine fails? The mechanisms underneath here start up a new virtual machine, and you almost do not recognize anything. So there are inbuilt health procedures, technical health procedures to keep the system up and running. And that may create even more redundancy than we have today. A second aspect is that there are inbuilt processes which do dynamic load balancing. So if one machine becomes too busy, the virtual machine online is moved to another physical computer. And by that, again, you create more redundancy, you create safer operations of the technical infrastructure. And that's what we call cloud infrastructure or a data center. And then, of course, there are lots of questions from a service provider point of view, from a competent authority point of view, how to organize that. Do I do that downstairs in my technical rooms? That's what I can do. I can outsource it to, for example, governmental data centers, which are available already. I can outsource it to private companies. I can outsource it within Fabric. And then we are talking about aspects like data security and privacy. I can outsource it to overseas, to United States, and so on. So lots of options. What are the other advantages of infrastructure like that? So today's infrastructure is typically set up at the location. We have typically one application, one computer, and we have a redundant copy of the application or a redundant system on another computer. Most computers mostly idling around. In a cloud infrastructure, first of all, the infrastructure, the hypervisor infrastructure and the virtual machine infrastructure is highly standardized. You can run many applications on one physical computer, and one application typically runs in one virtual machine, or if you go more in detail, you can put more than one container into one virtual machine. So there are even options beyond. So you get a much better use of the capabilities of the computer, and you have this inherent health mechanisms which redistribute applications across the hypervisors at one time, and you have this inherent load balancing mechanism. On the other hand, you get much more dependent on network environments, because all of what you see at your working position comes to you via networks. It's no more downstairs and then you have a maybe video cable upstairs or something like that, but it comes via network. However, the technical infrastructure becomes more independent from the physical location of an ACC or a tower. And there's no need anymore to co-locate data center and ACC tower. We can do that, but we don't have to do that. We can locate 2 or more redundant data centers in different physical locations, and by that, again, enhance the redundancy. We get easy scalability in case of e.g. you need more ACCs or you need more controller working positions in one ACC. Consider how much effort that takes today, and it becomes much easier because you just start up more virtual machines in your data center. You just buy in another hypervisor with more virtual machines, and then you can start up more controller working positions. And the lower level infrastructure can be operated by data center specialists because they are highly trained on that. That does not necessarily need to be ATSEP. And there's a huge discussion ongoing on European level on where is the dividing line between what must be operated by an ATSEP and what can be operated by other experts. So now we have to talk about the training requirements for that. Fortunately, my message is to air traffic controllers, none. Because your requirement is respective, no change at the working position. Maybe some slightly changing fallback procedures or something like that, but that's easy stuff. We do recognize, we do assume training requirements for competent authorities, because if they have to oversight all of that, that's not easy technology. That's quite tricky technology. It's important to understand all of that if you want to properly oversight that. So you have to understand the mechanisms, the processes, the services, if you want to certify that. You have to understand the benefits and the issues coming in or coming along with this infrastructure. And you have to very carefully differentiate the safety relatedness of these different levels of infrastructure. So that's quite important. And I would be very happy to recognize that all the competent authorities have all that know-how in-house. Looking in my own ANSP organization, I guess that they are not so much better than we. We don't have all that knowledge for all the people in-house, so we have to train our people on that. And that's the second part of this slide. So our ATSEPs have to recognize what changes with these cloud mechanisms and cloud infrastructures. They have to appreciate the communication processes between, for example, the virtual machines and the underlying infrastructure. They have to understand the mechanisms, processes, and services for the maintenance purposes, for maintenance issues on these specific systems or equipment. And it's quite similar and very important for the back office engineers as well, because they become mainly different mechanisms, processes, and services for designing specific systems. And that makes a real difference in training, because, and that's an interesting learning in our organization. As I said at the beginning, training is at the back end. Before you train people on an infrastructure like that, 2 or more years of project designing those technical infrastructures are down the road already. So 2 years ago, back office engineers have taken the task to design first applications cloud ready, like an arrival manager, for example. Okay, and how did they do that? They did it to their best knowledge. But their best knowledge was quite different. And if we now look into what's ongoing in DFS, we have different products which are heading to the cloud, and all of them on the lower levels, on the detailed levels, use different tools, different structures, different infrastructure. And that's a nightmare for training. How to train people consistently, sustainably on complete different infrastructures. That's a no-go. That doesn't work. And that doesn't work because in these processes, setting up these different products, there is not sufficient standardization in advance. You need to standardize your approach in the organization as early as possible to avoid a picture like that. Otherwise, you will not be able to train the people, because at the end, almost every ATSEP needs a different training. And that's completely inefficient. So what's the recommendation on ATSEP training for the cloud? as an organization, design your cloud infrastructure very carefully and try to standardize your products in terms of data center mechanisms and supporting software and tools which you make use of as early and as much as possible. And involve your competent authority as early as possible in these processes, including training if needed. And if you have done so, then you can talk about the training organization and how to design training for ATSEP. And for ATSEP, you typically create a joint learning environment together with not your ATSEP, but your product managers first, because you have to transfer the know-how, or you have to build up the know-how of the product managers as early as possible so that they can design good products which you then later on train your ATSEP on. So it's very important to be on front end of the project with training of the product managers. You should feedback all your experiences, like this one, to your projects, to your project managers, to the product managers, so that they can adjust the development and the standardization of the infrastructure. And then you can do what you are trained for. Set up a modular course structure or training structure which can be used for more stakeholders, like an introductory course, a course for the system managers for maintenance purposes, a standard course for new ab initio back office engineers, for product managers, specialized courses if needed, and so on. So de facto, in principle, that's the scope we are talking of here in the learning seminar. That's our core business. That's what we are used to do, and we can do it better or worse. But my message is we will fail to do that in terms of or related to cloud infrastructure if we are not in the processes in advance, if we are not making sure that the organization sets up all of that in a way that it is trainable for the ATSEP world. And that's it on cloud infrastructure for ATSEP and training for cloud infrastructure for ATSEP, an experience-based presentation from DFS. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the presentation. I am Eli Bomba from Belgium, Belgian NSA. The trend is today to have ATSEP in the Optimum, and how would you deal with cloud infrastructure in that related to that trend?
Well, that's difficult to say in general. In principle, I'm very much convinced that you can make use of cloud infrastructure in any environment, even in that you mentioned. It's important that you set up and safeguard the proper mechanisms to allow safe operations. And then you can make use of cloud infrastructure in almost any environment.
Thomas, thank you.
Thank you.
We will continue with a presentation of ENAC, Michael Frenot and Antoine Pierre about the pre-transition module from basic to enhanced.
Hello. So first of all, I want to thank SkyGuide for hosting the meeting in a very nice and efficient way. Thank you. Well, so my name is Michael Frenot. I'm the deputy head of the ATM department at ENAC. So basically, we provide ATM training for all kind of different programs. So pilots, technicians, engineers, and of course, more than 80% of our activity, ATCO training, both for theoretical training and practical training. And this is a joint presentation with Antoine, being equipped at the moment. He works as well in the department as the head of e-learning. Okay. And we're going to share our experience with the pre-transition module. So from basic to enhanced, because it is a module that we have operated since 2014, and now is about to go to a version 2. And I see some interesting connection with what has been said this morning by Alex and as well by Kate. Alex about the investment and Kate about how far we can go without being geo-specific. Okay. So here, everybody knows that. This is the traffic forecast. And, well, we all know that we are here. In 1 year, we will have fully recovered. In some areas, we will be even above the 2019 traffic. During that time, we have convinced our top manager to continue to invest. And so now we're accountable for giving them a return on investment, which is basically fair. So what does it mean for unit? They're going to take the pressure about training duration. I don't know if you remember, but in 2018, it was one of the main issues. Everybody was talking about training duration. We have to shorten the training. We have to make it more efficient budget-wise, more efficient human resources-wise, taking less instructors out of the ops room and doing more with less. So for me, as a training organization, the question is that, how can I support that? And one of the answers, not the only one, is delivering advanced students using a pre-transition module. Okay? This is a student. So first of all, to explain what it is, I'm going to begin by what it's not. We have here the initial training, the unit training. The initial training composed of the basic and the rating. We all know that by heart. It is not that. It is not just, I'm going beyond just the rating. What it is that. We still have the initial training, we still have the unit training, and we build something in between that is jointly designed, jointly developed, jointly delivered, and with a very, very strong quality loop, quality feedback. It must be the meeting of the unit expectation, and the unit is involved as well in the delivery, in the design and the development, and of initial training. Both shall work together to develop and deliver that module. 2 slides about what it is a bit more precisely. So just after the rating, it's a 10 weeks delivered, a 10-week module delivered at ENAC premises. Stripless upper airspace, because for the moment we only operate this module for en route at Co. The question is there to know what we can do for tower and approach, but for the moment it's only for en route at Co. Coach ratio 1:1, absolutely necessary. We cannot do less with the level of traffic and the complexity of the airspace that is given to the students. Delivered by unit and training organization coaches, and they shall act as a team. This is a daily issue, a daily task, to tell them that they need to act as a team. Because for a student, if I have an ENAC coach saying, okay, you shall do that, and a unit coach saying something else, it's not going to work. So we really need to have one single working method that is delivered to the students. I'm not saying it's easy. Customized theoretical training, because there is a massive practical training all along the 10 weeks. I will give some figures. But we can also add some theoretical training that are specific to their future units. Just to give an example, what are the traffic flows I will see in my future center? What is the professional attitude expected by my employer in my future unit? We can add everything. Custom competency scheme, for example, I will tell that a bit later. We delivered the module for MUAC. We have taken the CBAS, the MUAC CBAS. grid and observable, etc. Okay? So we can swap from one competency scheme to another, depending on the unit after the pre-transition. Regular meetings to monitor the training progress. Every week, the students come and have a debriefing about his overall performance, what he can improve, what is good, etc. And then a final board with the training organization and unit representative to draw a line, say, okay, here are the students, what are the competencies they are very good at, what they need to work a little bit more, and then I deliver that to the unit so they can adapt their training in the unit. So the student follow-up is basically one of the main advantages of that module. Second slide about some key figures. So in 10 weeks, 140 hours of simulations, okay? Basically 4 hours per day, 4 days a week. 10 weeks would mean 160, but at the beginning and at the end, we do a little bit less. That's all. So 140 hours of simulation, 45 aircraft per hour, which is quite heavy, and in a complex airspace. 2/3 of aircraft climbing and descending, okay, to make it very complex to manage, and a generic airspace and a generic HMI. It is useless to start to implement at that point unit specifics. I don't want some kind of strange military area with very specific rules or things like that. Yes, just one. You're right. Okay? And generic HMI. The idea is to build a student with a strong competencies, and then he can go to the unit to learn geospecifics, etc. And we can go very far and beyond the rating, far beyond the rating, keeping it generic. And some unit specifics, I've mentioned that. So the competency scheme, so we use the competency scheme of the unit, because if we want to develop competencies in the unit, we have to start during the pre-transition. Competency is a lot about progression. Okay? If you change your competency system between pre-transition and unit, you will have some problem at the end over. And the working method, well, we can adapt it slightly. To be honest, we try to keep it very, very, very generic, but we can adapt it slightly. I'm thinking, for example, about phraseology or things like that. Here we are at the moment. Version 1, created at ENAC in 2014 for MUAC initial training. Okay. So we have 7 years, we have 8 years of experience delivering that. And definitely, I can say, and maybe MUAC will contradict me or say I'm right, but definitely, we have proven the efficiency of that kind of module to deliver high-skilled students, to draw a very complete competency scheme for each student, and enable to customize the training, unit training. Definitely, when we give a student to the unit, they know exactly what competency shall be reinforced or what competency is okay. And they can, as well, individualize the training. It has been said several times this morning and yesterday. This is definitely a key element for performance in training. Having the ability to spot exactly what are the weaknesses and the strengths of a student. And then identify students unable to start unit training under good conditions. I'm not going to start again the debate about selection, but yeah, definitely if you draw a learning curve and the unit training starts at the end of this learning curve, if a student is not able to perform for 2, 3 or more weeks at or above the learning curve, it means that he will have some problem in the unit training. And we have definitely feedback of that with the 8 years of experience in MUAC. Each time we have sent a student to MUAC, being not so sure that he performed exactly at the requested level, be sure that he's in trouble in the unit training. So there is definitely a clear link, a clear connection with the performance in the pre-transition and the performance in the unit. So we are able, the idea is not to select only 50% of the students, etc., but we know that we can spot some profile that will have some problem in the units. And what we are quite proud about is that we are going to extend this module to all the SNS students, all the SNS students going to Reims ACC in November, as of November 2022. And now, version 2. So, being a bit challenged by MUAC, let's say, we have the idea to, okay, we are proud of that. It's been running for 8 years, it's okay. But it's not enough. We shall go ahead and imagine what is going to be in 8 years, and etc. So first of all, we have to reinforce the quality loop. I'm not saying we are going to be agile or whatever, but definitely after each module, we will have a wrap-up with the customer in order to be able to change the module to adapt it. Today, we cannot just say, okay, we have a pre-transition, let's run it for 10 years, and we will see after that. Each year, we will have the mandate to adapt things, to change, to modify some contents. Then we want to enhance the student follow-up. It's already a strong point of this kind of module, but we want to go beyond. From the very beginning of the selection till the full qualification in ops room, we shall be able to have a look at exactly what happened in order to be able to adjust and once again to individualize the follow-up and the remedial actions all along the training. And then, and I will leave the floor just after this slide to Antoine, self-training. It has been said, definitely. Our students, if you give them the possibility to do that, they will do that. And they will definitely reinforce some competence, some key competence by themselves. And they will try things that they will never dare to try on a simulator with a coach. They will try, they will experience mistakes, etc. So we encourage them to do that. So self-training exists at ENAC for a long time, but we definitely want to increase massively the amount of time, the volume of time dedicated to that. Our objective is to have a wide catalog available anywhere, anytime. Do I want to practice sequencing to that airport? Okay, I have 10 exercises ready, and I can practice on my own. And you will see that when Antoine will come, we also offer the possibility to have counters, key indicators, these kind, in order the student is able to assess his own performance. But Antoine will explain that.
Thank you, Michael.
Better than me.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. So what we've learned from our partners' feedback and the previous pre-transition training programs is that students reach a high level thanks to pre-transition. And the training duration is minimized by pre-transition in the unit training. So thanks to mutual exchanges and feedback between ENAC and our partners, topics where weaknesses and shortcomings have been identified. These topics are general aircraft performance knowledge, wind effects on aircraft regulation, catch-up detection, detecting, converging, climbing or descending aircraft. These kind of topics have been identified thanks to regular feedbacks and regular meetings between ENAC and our partners. So decision, as Michael said, has been made to reinforce self-training, which is one way to address this kind of weaknesses, and reinforce self-training in these areas of improvement and reinforce simulation exposure. All that is done with a co-design with our partners. How are we going to do that? How are we going to reinforce self-training and simulation exposure? Yesterday, I made a demo of ELSA. I'm not going to be long on that tool, but I have to explain to people who are online. ELSA is an ENAC Lite simulator for ATCH and ENAC software. And this is a tool we are going to use to increase simulation exposure. The availability is 24/7 via our learning management system. and it proposes autonomous online simulations. Objectives and progression of these exercises are co-designed by ENAC in coordination with our partners, and the production is made by the training organization instructors. The objective is also to feed a sim library available to students and instructors. The estimation of production, the way we're going to produce it, is 1 sim per day per coach. And as said before, the objective is to widen the sim catalog, self-training catalog. Just a few slides on ELSA. So ELSA is an ENAC software. It's a web-based ATC simulator, light simulator. The web technology enables an easy deployment, easy use, easy development of the software. Simulations, as said, are accessible online or as standalone exercises. They're accessible via a simple web browser, and it's made of three main components: the editor, the simulation engine, and the server. This is an image of ELSA editor. Very quickly on that, it's used to design, approach ACC environments. The publication is according to your needs. So if you want to use your simulation as standalone or on websites, it's possible with ELSA editor. This is a WYSIWYG interface, which means what you see is what you get. No need to have development skills or developer skills to use ELSA editor. An ATC background is enough. You simply define elements by drag and drop on the map. It's user-friendly to start creating exercises. 1 hour training is enough. Aircraft performances are fully customizable. And finally, the aircraft navigation is FMS-like. What does it mean? The ENAC research department worked with us on ELSA to propose algorithmic functions that we implemented into ELSA to allow navigation like an FMS. For example, the interception of levels is asymptotic. The interception of an ILS is also asymptotic. And if the speed is too high, the ILS interception will be overshot. Quickly again on the engine. So ELSA engine basically runs the simulation and displays the predefined HMI for the exercise. It provides standard functionalities of generic stripless HMI, synthesizes the controller and pilot's messages, giving feedback to the students by saying if the clearance is correct or not with a color in the message box. On the right part of the image, you can see blue and green and orange messages. It's the messages that are synthesized by ELSA as a feedback for the student, so that he's able to see what should have been the message given to the pilot or the acknowledgement of the pilot. ELSA, as Michael said, gives and calculates in real time KPIs so that the student, the trainee, is able to see what's his performance. The engine also allows play, pause, fast forward, rewind, record also. So it's it's very useful tool for briefing, debriefing, and part task training. Quickly again on this part of ELSA, the third main component of ELSA. This is ELSA server, which allows a deployment of, I would say, multi-sectors with one or several controllers with autopilot or pseudo-pilots. So this is a solution available for ATC centers, for ENAC, to deploy easily multi-sector simulations. Supervision can be done on a standardized IT infrastructure. You only have to launch the server on a standard PC, and the connection is done via LAN and a web browser. So standard IT infrastructure to launch this kind of solution. And it enables also recording and broadcasting functionalities. This is a slide where I want to focus on the pre-transition initial training. As you can see here, the first steps, the first 4 bricks cover the SCS, the basic and ACS ratings. And the last brick is our pre-transition module, made with more than 140 hours of simulation. These degrees are built in the 3 first weeks the same way. The path followed by trainees is the same. If I focus on pre-transition, they begin with basic CBTs, basic data CBTs, where they learn the basic data used in the simulations and during practical training. They go on with workbooks with coaches, where they discover the working method in classrooms. Then they continue with CBTD exercises, which is another ENAC software. I won't go on with that kind of tool, but it's another ENAC software where it's more complex exercises and where they apply the working method in a non-real-time environment. Then they go on with ELSA CBT, which is used at ENAC as a part-task trainer, where they practice specific skills. Currently, they practice specific skills, and I will show you afterwards where we're going to, where we're aiming at currently. And they, at the end of this pass, at the end of the 3 first weeks, they go on, they continue with the simulations, the hi-fi simulations, the 140 hours simulations. So this is a slide of how we use ELSA, regardless of the degree. So this is the use of ELSA on, with a general view on all the degrees used and deployed at ENAC. So ELSA is used as a part-task trainer, as I said. The students have scheduled sessions on their timetables. They also have an access 24/7 via eCampus, our learning management system. And it's also used to create and develop material for instructors. We have short and specific situations dedicated to workbooks, to animate sessions in classroom. The idea is to illustrate the theory learned in the workbooks. We have specific briefing and debriefing simulation material. The idea there is to feed a library of worth having situations so that instructors are able to take any material available in this library to illustrate something they want to show in the briefing or debriefing. And we have what I call generic debriefing material, which is an exact copy of the hi-fi simulations, so that the instructors are able in classrooms to get back to a specific situation trainees encountered in hi-fi simulations. Easily in classroom, it's available. So this is today's ENAC use of ELSA, regardless of pre-transition program. And now, what are we going to do? What are we aiming at with pre-transition version 2? With ELSA, always I have a focus on ELSA. So today, just to recap, we have autonomous part-task training available 24/7. We have 5 10-minute long exercises with specific situations, very short exercises available on the internet. What we're going to tomorrow, we are currently developing autonomous simulations. It's not part-task exercises anymore. These are simulations still available 24/7, autonomous, 30, 40-minute long exercises so that simulations are more complex. The idea here is to prepare trainees to detect and identify difficult ATC situations embedded in those globalized simulations. So at the beginning of my intervention, I showed you the areas of improvement, and we are going to work on these areas. So just to recap them, 3D convergence, strong winds effects, and complex conflicts. Finally, so what are we going to do in the next months, in the next years with ELSA? As said before, the first goal is to develop simulation exposure and self-training. We also have an objective which is not linked to pre-transition, not really linked to pre-transition, but is linked to our partner DSNA. We have certification in progress for ELSA. And we have also areas of development with ELSA and PT. So the idea is to develop a web simulation platform so that we increase simulation exposure. Students will be able to connect anytime at a platform where the practice, the controller side, and also the pilot side, why not? We are currently working on ASR and TTS, so automatic speech recognition and text-to-speech, so that ELSA will be able to have voice recognition, and so that trainees will be able to practice phraseology. That's one of the major steps we want to go to. Why not, as said Michael, prepare a pre-transition for tower and approach? That would be a great idea. And develop what I call a complex stripless HMI to increase flexibility of ELSA. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Michael and I will be very happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting. Some questions? Oh, a lot of. Oh, you have one.
Andreas Orwein, Eurocontrol Maastricht. I will not challenge something here. I just want to provide a feedback of a happy customer and try to explain why it is important for us. Being faced to a complex and dense airspace, it's quite important for us to smoothen the path for the trainee. So this is why we are happy to have the pre-transition in between and to have a more advanced trainee that is then entering our unit training. I like the step, Michael, you called it a challenge. Antoine, you said it's a co-design, and this is exactly what needs to happen. This is what we learned, the lessons learned. So beside all the innovation and technology, it's people, 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 and the cooperation that is required, the talking amongst the people to make something, to make an innovation even in this direction. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for the feedback. And yeah, definitely, it was not mentioned in my presentation, but before 2014, so the first group of students attending the module, we had, I don't remember, maybe 20 meetings, once in ENAC, once in MUAC, etc., trying to understand really what was expected from the unit, trying to implement it in a generic way. It was not a unit training subcontracted, a part of the unit training subcontracted to ENAC. It was really, yeah, definitely a joint venture. And now, after a while, we are starting again exactly the same process and accelerating the pace of the meetings to, once again, put people together. And when you put 3 experts of unit training and 3 experts of initial training together, no way, they will do a good job. Yeah, so I'm happy that we are starting this new cycle, definitely.
Thank you for your presentation. Just one question. When you have a long session, do you have a period where, in French, il s'ennuie, when it's boring, just to check if they are not as good as after a period of where there is nearly nothing present in front of them? Because with high-level athletes, we saw that some are excellent when they have a lot to do, and when you stop this activity, they are just lost.
Okay. So you mean during the pre-transitional module? It doesn't happen. It's a constant, definitely. It's a constant climb, except at the very end, because we want, I didn't mention, not to go too much in details, but there is a very strong follow-up and a continuous assessment. But at the end, we want to see them alone. So we have a 1 week with no coaching sessions, only at the very end. And this, we have a slight decrease in the amount of traffic. But non, il ne s'ennuie pas. Jamais.
Katrina Micheleers, guys. We also just installed a PTT. Thank you for the idea. Just a question on the regulatory part of it, because we're still a bit struggling with it. What is the status of this module versus your supervising authority? Is it approved? As it is not initial nor unit training?
Yeah. It is. It is, but it could be not approved. What I mean is that it's not initial training. It's part of unit training. So units somewhere. No, sorry. Start again. For MUAC, it's between initial and unit training. So from a regulatory point of view, we have nothing to, we don't have to seek for an approval or anything. Despite that, we have done that because it was also a quality proof or something like that. So we have asked our national supervisor authority to put a stamp on it. But it was possible not to do that. For the SNA, it's a bit different because it will be part of the unit training. It's just a matter. So definitely it's covered by the regulation.
Okay.
And it's pre-transition for DESAC, which is our NSA. They say that for us, pre-transition is going to be under the same umbrella as transition, which is definitely under a regulatory framework. For them, it will be the same.
Yes, and just another feedback. It is a teamwork, as Andreas and Michael said. And actually, yeah, that was what I wanted to say. It was also a teamwork with our NSA, trying to understand where does it fit into the regulation, because what we NSP want to do with that depends. Well, MUAC did something with it. The SNA is doing roughly the same thing, but a bit different at the end. And to answer the previous question about are they going to be bored when they go down again? Well, actually, the teamwork is thinking about that so that when they finish that module and they arrive in the unit training, the unit has to realize that it's not anymore the students of before, and that the unit needs to be ready to have advanced students. So they need to be ready to fit them with what they are, which is not what the previous students were, so that they don't actually get bored. So they are we are working right now, because it's November at the end of the year, so we are really working right now about our training plans, and it's a joint work with our NSA to work on our training plans, to adapt everything so that everything is regular. Well, it's okay with regulation, but it's also okay. Before being okay with the regulation, it's also to be okay with what a student is and what a student needs at the time. So, yeah, very good question about the being bored thing.
Thank you to all the presenters who have given us insights to their specific topics. I have so many questions, but before I start with my questions, are there questions from the people in the room?
It's a question for all of your projects, well, 3 of them actually. How did you present this innovation to the social partners, and how did they receive it? And how are you including them or the ADCOs in what you're doing?
Okay, well, I'm happy to start off with that, having been social dialogue manager for 8 years. Yes, so we are including them. We've started the conversations quite early on to explain to them what the concept was, even before we knew what it looked like really, but just to start the conversation. We have regular meetings with them. In fact, at the end of the month, I've got another one where we're presenting the results of the first set of simulations. Obviously, when we include air traffic controllers in the simulations, we're also trying to include staff representatives from the union, which also helps to spread the word, I would say the good word if we can. There are conversations, of course, about what social impact will this have. And I think, as you heard Alex say, we need staff. This isn't going to reduce the staff. It's going to increase the capacity. It's going to increase our ability to meet the airspace users' needs. So it should not have social impact. That's not the aim, certainly.
Yeah, I can say 2 words about the pre-transition for the SNA. Definitely, it's at the staff advantage. You are better trained. So who would refuse that? So definitely, this is the angle we try to give, the point of view we try to give. Okay, it's a module that is very demanding. So for students, it's hard. It's demanding, definitely. But it's in your own interest. And even the aspect of the selection aspect, let's say, it's definitely also at their advantage. Going in a unit without having the competence to be successful makes no sense. So we try to put that the subject on the table like that.
And with regard to ARCEP in my organization, it's a two-step approach. So first of all, for quite some years, and you may have recognized that from my presentation, we have a major project ongoing, which is sponsored by our CTO. And this project has engaged the social partners very early on many, many different aspects. One of them is training. And of course, training at the beginning is not as concrete as others. The second aspect is the regular consultation of our social partners when we create new trainings or new lines of trainings. That's what we do as the Training Academy. And our social partners very much appreciated our approach or our try to organize standardized training and different lines of training for different stakeholders, for different user groups like the ARCEP or the back office engineers, and to establish that as a standard process. So they're quite in favor of that, which of course does not mean that we do not have some conversations on what is the correct content, what's the correct duration, but that's daily business.
Maybe I can add a few words on what Michael said, but yes, we do ask social partners what are their feelings on pre-transition and at very early stages, and it's a very demanding module, but they understand that the aim is to get students to high level, and it's for us it's a core module that is for the ADCOs. So it's quite easy to make them understand that the innovation is good for the DSNA and ADCOs.
For me, as I said, we are just a piece of the puzzle. So my problem is to tell people we are here to help and not to stop the future of somebody. And that's we check the eyes, we check the brain, and that's sometimes it's wow, they just don't want to be checked, because if we found something, maybe the future is just just a piece of the puzzle. We take the job of nobody. We deal with coaches, psycho, neuro, etc. But we take the job of nobody, and that's just we have to be quite as we can.
Thank you. I have two questions on pre-transitional training. The first question is related to, okay, as far as I understand, you provide this training to MUAC, Eurocontrol MUAC, and you plan also to extend it to DSNA this year. Apart from these two organizations, do you have other partners that are interested by the training you provide, pre-transitional?
Okay, thank you for the question. The answer is no, not for the moment. And even for the SNA, it doesn't concern all the students. It concerns only the students who will go to Reims ACC. So it's basically 1 out of 4 of the students we train, let's say that. And then, if we are successful implementing that for Reims, maybe we will extend that to other ACC. So we send a lot of people, for example, to Paris ACC, ab initio, and then the question will be raised again to implement that for Tower and Approach. So you see the working program is quite heavy, even without adding any other customers.
Yeah. The second question is that in the oversight perspective, anyway, in Belgian NSA, we don't put a stamp on that for the moment, at least. I would like to know if you have presented this training to EASA and what EASA perspective on that training, if you have an idea on that.
For the moment, the way we deal with the regulatory aspect is just that it's part of the unit training. We don't go beyond that. And for the moment, I'm quite happy if there is no specific regulation for the pre-transition. We'll see, maybe it will happen, but it would not be the direction I would prefer.
Jan Tanes, LVNL. I also have some questions about the pre-transition training, and I don't know if it's for you, Andreas, or for the ENAC colleagues. I assume that during the PTT, the coaches are ENAC employees, or is it on and off, MUAC and ENAC? Because my question is about after the pre-transition training, then they're going to the unit training, that's completely MUAC. And what is the involvement from the MUAC colleagues during the PTT? Can you say something about that?
So it's definitely both. ENAC and MUAC coaches are delivering the module. And we need, for example, if we have 12 students, we need 12 coaches. MUAC provides 3 of them, and ENAC 9 of them. That's the rule today. It has changed a little. At the beginning it was 2, then MUAC increased a little bit, and linked as well to the COVID situation, I guess, and etc. I don't know if you want to add something.
Absolutely true. Okay. So it's a joint effort that is taken, and that needs to be taken, because.
And during initial training, is it also a joint effort, or is it then completely ENAC?
No, the basic and the rating is delivered on our own.
Good morning, Philippe van den, the Sky's training office. Regarding to the brain and the eye, I was wondering, it reminded me of an aircraft incident years ago, I think. Can you identify a difference between people that were trained, let's say, they learned from childhood on, reading from the right to the left, as we all read from left to right, in the first impression, the fast thing they see coming, the first time they see something, do you see a difference there? And could you train on that?
When we read, we start not at the beginning, but just after the beginning. So we learn that. We have a few cases, a few neuro cases, and one of the patients, she's cycling gold European medal, and she has only half of the visual field. Okay, and she told us that she can feel things she's unable to see. So we can go to this kind of direction, and it's part of the baseline we do, and we check a lot of things just to make after individual training for people. So if there is a difference before, we try to improve the field where it's not so well. That's the difference. If we have, that's why I said before, we are here to help. So if there is something not as good as we hope, and we check teams. Teams are, you have 20, 25 a player. And we found about 20% they have a problem. It could be glasses, it could be a problem with the eye, it could be other problem. But even with the high-level athletes, we found problems. So we try to help, yes. So when there is a difference, we try to reduce this difference.
Thank you. Pick up a question that was already raised, and I think can again be we can again talk about this. Dr. Mata, you said, I think, something about fatigue during the training, and the answer is there's no annoying factor. But what you wanted to hear is maybe something like, do you do intentionally something to keep up the focus? Is that correct?
Yes, my question was more when we spoke just before. When you have when nothing happened, okay, no plane for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, half an hour, and you have something. All right, how you react to that? How you train to be better when it happened? Because with hockey goalkeeper, we have one here in Geneva. The ball are so speed you are unable to follow this ball, but he's brilliant. But when you reduce the speed, he's lost. That's how you train this kind of things. How you do that, and that was the sense of my question.
May I, before there's an answer, may I bounce it back? Because coming to the automation and having more and more systems, maybe in the future, to take over, it is exactly the situation of an air traffic controller to pick up when required in a situation where before it was very low complexity for the ETCO. So is your method then, or could it help?
Yes, for sure, because we train that. We can train the visual field, the focus, but even the speed. We have this kind of balls, they just move, and sometimes they move slowly. And they move faster and slowly, and you can train that. And you can add things. I spoke about maths. We can have a ball, we can have anything we want. So is the multitask plus about the speed. So we can train these kind of things. For example, you have this goalkeeper he was in Paris Saint-Germain, now he's in Eintracht Frankfurt. He was excellent, brilliant. But when the team was too good, pop, goal, because he lost maybe attention. So that's a kind of field, and I love this kind of field because it's here we can help.
And to make the combination back to the initial training, so first of all, you can as well answer to the first question.
I will try and answer.
One hook on, shall we think about methods like this when it comes to the scanning initial skills which need to be trained during initial training?
Well, definitely what we are talking about is situation awareness. This is definitely one of the competency in the list that we want to increase. But to be honest, we do not put in our simulation specific situations that would lead to that kind of to assess that kind of competency. What we could see definitely is an instructor when the traffic is going down saying, be careful. There is always something to anticipate or be prepared that the traffic next it will increase. But there is no specific situation that would put that in practical training. But well, to be thought maybe.
Yeah,
just one question: when you train these people, they use that their personal phone. Not during the simulation. It's avoided. Forbidden. Okay, so they can have a bad news. Do you try to bring them some bad news or some? Yeah.
So no, not by your cell phone, definitely.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Antoine, you talked about ELSA, and I saw that there's a new step. And my question is, A, will there be even more automation? Or is there a good reason not to put too much automation into ELSA?
That's a good question, tricky question. I would say more automation, of course, but we have to keep in mind that the human has to be in the center of the system. So we are working on automatic speech recognition. That's a way to put more automation in ELSA and to improve the efficiency of the tool. So I would say yes, more automation, but keep in mind that the human has to be in the center of the system.
Okay, thank you for that. Thomas, empty cellars, no computers, no machines anymore in the buildings. Where are they?
Well, does it matter? In the future world, it doesn't. It is brought to your working position via networks. And the question where they are, of course, is a very important one on the technical level. It's an important one on the supervisory, also on the competent authority level. And you have to very carefully design your overall technical system to make it as resistant to any failure scenarios as possible. However, the concept of data centers, and that's not ANS world, that's many other industries, is much more redundant and failure resistant in itself than the technology we make use of today. And we all know that our technology already is very, very highly available and failure resistant due to redundant systems and so on. But to try and answer from my organization, where are these machines? We at the moment are planning to have a data center on site hosted by DFS, a second data center with, let's say, a premium partner like Deutsche Telekom, with very strict contractual agreements on many, many issues. And we think about a third data center for non-operational use. So for example, system development, system testing, maybe later on simulations for training purposes or something like that. And that can be done any major company, because that's not safety critical. That's completely outside the functional systems. But for everything inside the functional system, we are, well, how to say, quite conservative in terms of where are the machines.
Thank you. Kate, virtual centers, less basic stuff to start specialization even earlier. Is that contradictory to the thoughts of EASA about harmonization?
And that's a very interesting question, and we are having a conversation with EASA about that, because we do want the performance to, we want the performance to be set. We do want to have a performance system. What we don't want is to be told how to get there. And so harmonization, yes, and I would say a level playing field at the performance for the whole of the aviation system across Europe. That's important. Telling us that we need to do 3 weeks of simulation for this and 4 hours of theory for that is not going in the right direction, because there we need the flexibility to adapt to each individual's learning path.
And the method of using the wish list is more design thinking. You let people trial things and find out what is really required. So the end user is asked what is required. Is that a big change in the focus of how we do change in project management?
That's a good question as well. I've only recently moved into project management world, I must say. But no, indeed, it's research. It's not a project like we're saying we're going to replace an ILS and we know what the end product is. We don't really know what it looks like yet. We've got an idea. We're using what I call the fuzzy road approach, in other words, or the foggy road approach, where we're driving a car down a road. We know that we want to get to the hotel at the end, but we're not quite sure what the hotel looks like. We've only seen it on a website, and we don't know if the road's going to turn left and right to be able to get there. And we're following the road. Each time we move forward, the fog clears up a little bit, and we see the next turn, the next curve, until we'll finally get to the hotel, which may even be a moving target.
What a nice picture. Speaking about pictures, so how would the day look like for a controller, let's say, Dr. Matta? I'm going into your direction. So let's assume we have a day, and then do we need to use the tools each and every day? Do we need to roster that, to plan that into our daily work habit? And what about detraining? Do we lose the skills, and when do we lose that?
Maybe not each day. Each day, it's maybe after a concussion. Here you must do it many times during a day and for a few days. But no, if you train 2 times, 3 times a week, and it's exactly the same. The young player, when they want to do it, they do it. They understand that it's for them. And the other one, if they don't want to do it, just think about why they don't want to do these kind of things. So no, if you train, it's like all the training. You must continue to train, but if you stop for any reason, if you change your job and you come back to your previous job, you can continue easily. And the most important is not only to train, is to know how to train, and it's to do a training person per person. Otherwise, it's just video games. Just like my daughter or my son, they play with video games. They improve, they train, but if you know exactly how what you search, you will be better.
Okay, thank you very much. Unit training and initial training should be even closer together, according to what you said. How does it practically look like? Does it mean that you already start with the new tools, with a new technology, with a complex situation, and in initial training?
So I think new tools, certainly. I think getting people in the initial training using the tools that they will be using on site is worthwhile. But here I think what ENAC and MUAC are doing are very important. It's having that conversation between the units and the initial training, between the units in the academy. What does the unit need? Not for yesterday, but what does the unit need? Where do they see themselves going? And so that we avoid the situation where we're training according to ICAO, Annex 1, and the training manual, which is basically in the regulation. And we've just ticked a whole lot of boxes, but we haven't actually looked at what the end product needs to look like. Because then there's this whole big pre-OJT training that has to happen. So reducing that by saying, well, what do you need? What makes sense is really key here.
Thank you.
Fully support that. With the regulation, what we have observed is that, okay, now we are all fully compliant and we tick all the boxes to be fully compliant to the regulation. Is that our job? Definitely not. And maybe with this strong regulation that we have, that is once again in a way useful, maybe at one time we can lose the idea, the final objectives, and putting the unit and the initial training once again together, talking about what is the job, what do we need an ATCO, what he has to do, how he can perform. That's a way of putting unit and initial training together, being definitely more performant.
And I think to add to that, what you just said is very important. If we focus on ticking boxes, we're not looking at the performance, and it can actually become unsafe because we're too concentrated on being compliant.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the panel? Otherwise, I would close that and give an applause to the speakers. Where to start? It's a huge picture. It's a lot of information, and this is what I received from people who participated. As well for me, so many good thoughts that are now here on the wall and show what we discussed, what we heard, and what brings us to innovation and to changes. A nice thing I see here is a small plant which is growing to a tree. So this is a major change. Are we able to manage the major change? Of course, will the next step be the major change? We don't know. Maybe we do baby steps. What I've seen, what I highlighted as well, is that teamwork is important, that the people are important, that what happens amongst the people is very important, and that brings me to the human being. Under all this innovation, AI, and technology, there's human beings who are important. When it comes to change management, we saw that we shouldn't forget things. A lot of insights. I know now we are able to see that. That's very good. A lot of things happen. So we discussed about the teamwork, the major change I mentioned. Already twice or even 3 times we heard about individual training. Finally, with this individual training, we focus again on the individuals, the people. This is what we should do. Custom-made, tailor-made training is something that comes up with our colleagues from ENAC. The idea of pre-transition is as well taken on board by other organizations. We want to join or meet the customer's needs. On the other hand, a complete different area of ATSEP and the cloud base. We are used to clouds. Having a mobile already means, in most cases, we are using cloud services. But what does it mean for an ANSP or for a provider? Change, a big change, a lot of training that is involved, that needs to be tackled by the change management, by the projects that happen. And new approaches. We've seen amongst all the presentations that were given, approaches to do things different, to combine, to be more efficient, to give the technology, the knowledge that is currently in our heads, or the heads of the EDCO, that we use the technology to make our life easier and to digest the complexity of airspace. On the other hand, to make things even more flexible training. The machines will be able to store such data. How an HMA looks like, we have to see. Coming to the I. So we learn through our eyes. We speak through our eyes and use our brain through our eyes. I think this is something from an outside area, which is currently not part of ATM, which brings ideas into our heads. How can it be used? What are the possibilities to widen the scope, to keep focus, to transmit learning experience. We talked about scanning and the panel discussion. How can we improve maybe even the scanning? How can we use that in the daily life of a controller? And due to the wise decision of not only one CEO, but others, we do not stop, or they haven't stopped investments in the area of projects. Because of this, we were able to do all the things we presented, to do the innovations, to have different approaches as the colleagues from LVNL did, to continue to still say, okay, we stand up, we face the situation, the bad it is, although knowing that this change is not like this. All the changes we see here are technologically orientated, people orientated, cultural change. Cultural change takes a while. So a marathon that is ahead of us, that we need to face and that we need to tackle and to run. And with the baby steps, staying in the picture, we need to train for the marathon. We will not be able to do it in one go. not to lose contact to the people, to do the coaching, to improve this. Maybe even with the gist of what I said in the beginning, to cooperate in this area, to share knowledge, and to look at the worries and the fears of maybe not only the students, but as well all the other players in ATM. Because they need to be, and coming back to the ATSEP, all these people need to be involved to make changes, not only ATCOs. I have to be very, very political correct not to say something wrong when it comes to COVID and the backside of the medal. I do not want to say that what happened was good, but there was good things that could be developed while we were in the situation. I believe that the more we develop, the more innovations that come up, we should as well cooperate. This is now again a bit of a dream, but seeing the small tiles of a puzzle, what if we put these tiles together? What if we make a picture like it is today with that? Most probably I'm not able to go into each and every detail. Hopefully I've tackled most of it. I don't know if there's something that still needs to be discussed from your side, or that you think is important to be mentioned, and maybe we can have a small discussion that was planned before, or close the meeting if you say enough is enough. A lot of things to digest and a lot of things to take home and to start thinking again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Very good wrap up of the 2 days. And if we look at this picture, I think we have quite some work to do, because the ideas are here. Now we have to do something about that.
Correct.
So we will see. And the investments are granted, as Alex said. Not safe, but granted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this brings us to the end of this seminar. I like to thank you very much for participation, but especially for the presentations and all this exchange we had yesterday and as well today. And this clearly showed me that it was necessary that we do something like that. And we are already looking forward to the next event. I think we will continue this, and we have a nice picture to take with us, and next time we can tick boxes of what we already have implemented, hopefully. We will see. I would like to thank very much the whole event organization. Marilena, she's here. There's quite a lot of work to do and organize this event. We lost the second supporter, which is Emmanuel. Unfortunately, he started yesterday and then had some problems, had to go to the doctor, very unfortunately. I would like to have had him as well here, but he's okay. That's at least what we know, and we hope that he comes back soon. Raimund has done a huge work, Raimund Friedrich, in the background, putting all these informations into the FABEC environment. So thanks to him as well. He was not able to join because he was on vacation. That's great as well. Hopefully with nicer weather than we have. And obviously as well Kate. Kate supported since the beginning. Thank you very much for that.
Welcome.
And in the whole moderation of the event as well, Andreas. Very well done. Thank you very much for what you have done. I have to say some things about the technical hiccups we had. Unfortunately, the live streaming was not working as expected. We are still looking for where the issue was at the end. I think the live streaming was then started a bit later, right? but it's recorded, and what I hope very much is that we are able to present the whole event, the presentations and whatever we discussed here in this room on the website soon, and that everybody then can access it and have a look on what we have done. I'm very happy then to see these things as well. I think that's it. So thanks a lot, and see you next time, hopefully as well physically, a bit more people hopefully, and stay safe, come back home safe, and take care. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.